Hello everyone. CEO Toan's life was spared when the boss's daughter risked herself to save him from a violent gang. But for me, days of wandering left me weak, and I collapsed under the weight of hunger and exhaustion. When I awoke, my memories were gone, scattered like leaves in the wind, and then, after so many days apart, I met CEO Toan again. My heart whispered his name, but my mind was silent. Do I still love him, or has time stolen what we once had?
The rain had just stopped, leaving the streets shimmering with puddles that reflected the pale city lights. Toan stood in the narrow alley, his breath unsteady, his eyes fixed on the shadows closing in. The gang moved like predators, their voices cold, their footsteps echoing off the damp walls. He knew trouble was seconds away until a figure rushed. And it was Thong, the daughter of his father's business partner. Her sudden arrival cut through the tension with fearless determination. She stepped between him and the attackers, her voice sharp, her presence demanding respect. The gang hesitated, then dispersed. Melting into the darkness, Toan exhaled deeply, a mix of relief and gratitude flooding him. But his mind was not free. Somewhere beyond the city lights, Tu Diem was still out there alone. Days had passed since she vanished, and every hour without her felt heavier than the last. What Toan didn't know was that, at that very moment, she was wandering through a rural market, her strength fading after days without proper food or rest. Her vision blurred, her legs gave way, and she collapsed on the roadside. A passing stranger carried her to a small clinic in the outskirts. When she awoke, the world felt like a blank canvas. Her memories were scattered pieces, faces, voices, a name she could not place. She knew only that she had been searching for someone, but his face remained locked away in the fog of her mind. Fate has its quiet way of arranging meetings. Days later, as Toan left a meeting in a provincial town, he caught sight of a woman standing uncertainly near the bus station. Something in her posture, the way her hair caught the wind, stopped him cold. He called out, but she didn't respond, only turned to look at him with guarded eyes. "Toan," he said gently, stepping closer. "It's me." She frowned, searching his face as if flipping through invisible pages in her mind. "Do I know you?" she asked softly, the words cut deeper than any wound. He had imagined their reunion 100 times, each one filled with warmth, recognition, and joy. Instead, he stood in front of the woman he loved, who now saw him as a stranger. But love is patient. Toan smiled faintly and said, "Maybe you don't remember now, but I'll stay by your side until you do." Her eyes lingered on him a moment longer, as if something within her wanted to believe him. The feeling was faint, but it was there, a small spark buried beneath the ashes of lost time. And perhaps, just perhaps, that spark was enough. The days that followed were a quiet storm inside Toan's heart. He found Tu Diem a small room near the company guest house, bringing her meals and walking her to the clinic for checkups. She would sit by the window for hours, watching the street as if searching for something she couldn't name. Sometimes, Toan caught her looking at him with a puzzled expression, as though her heart remembered what her mind had forgotten. He never pushed her. Instead, he told her stories about the time they got lost in the forest, about the night she had saved him without even realizing it, about the way her kindness had changed him. One evening, rain tapped gently against the glass, and Toan brought her a cup of warm ginger tea. She wrapped her hands around it, the steam curling upward. "Toan," she said slowly, "I had a dream last night. I was standing in the rain, and someone held an umbrella over me. I couldn't see his face, but I felt safe." Toan's voice was low, almost a whisper. That was me. Her eyes widened slightly, the weight of his words settling in. Memories flickered, fleeting images of him calling her name, his hand pulling her from danger, the warmth of his jacket around her shoulders. She gasped softly, clutching her head as the fragments sharpened. I remember. Her voice trembled. You found me when I was lost. You stayed with me when I was sick. Toan moved closer, afraid she might collapse again. Yes, and I've been looking for you ever since you left. Her tears came without warning, slipping down her cheeks. I don't know why I ran. I was scared, but I never stopped thinking about you. He took her trembling hands in his. It doesn't matter now. You're here. That's all that matters. For the first time since their reunion, she smiled a real smile, warm and unguarded. And in that moment, Toan knew the distance, the amnesia. The days of wandering had not erased what they had. It had only made it stronger. Days at the hospital passed slowly, each are stretching like a fragile thread between past and present. Toan spent most of his time by the Diem's bedside, watching her breathe, hoping each moment would bring back the light of recognition in her eyes. Sometimes she would stir, frown slightly, and whisper fragments of words, names, places, pieces of a life she could not fully grasp. One rainy afternoon, as Toan sat by the window reading documents, he heard her voice soft, trembling. Why do you care so much for me? She asked, her eyes meeting his with uncertainty. Toan closed the file and moved closer. Because you once risked everything to protect me, even when you had nothing to gain. He said quietly, you saved my life, Tu Diem. I cannot forget that, even if you have. She turned away, her gaze fixed on the raindrops sliding down the glass. But I don't remember. I don't even remember myself. Her voice cracked. Heavy with frustration and fear, Toan reached out, gently taking her hand. Then let me be here until you do. And if you never remember, I'll make new memories with you. His words seemed to stir something deep inside her, an ache, a warmth she couldn't explain. But before she could respond, the door opened. Thong, Toan's trusted friend and the one who had helped search for her, stepped in with a grave look. We have a problem, Thong said. The gang that attacked you. Before, they're looking for her. Toan's jaw tightened. He knew that losing her once had nearly broken him. This time, he wouldn't let her slip away, not to fear, not to danger, and certainly not to the shadows of the past. Toan could not bear the thought of losing Diem again. He moved her to a quieter room in the hospital, making sure she had everything she needed. For days, he stayed by her side, barely sleeping, waiting for her eyes to open. When Diem finally woke, she looked around in confusion. Her voice was hoarse as she asked, "Where am I?" Toan's heart ached. He explained everything gently, how she had been wandering alone, how she collapsed, and how he brought her here. But she looked at him with no recognition. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" she whispered. The words felt like a knife to his chest. She had lost her memories, all the moments they shared, all the struggles they endured gone from her mind. Toan didn't tell her about the depth of their bond right away. Instead, he decided to take care of her, to let her heart remember what her mind could not. He brought her warm meals, told light-hearted stories, and slowly shared fragments of the past. Sometimes, when their eyes met, he saw a flicker of something familiar in her gaze, something that gave him hope. But the shadow of danger still lingered. The gang that once attacked Toan had not vanished. Rumors reached him that they were looking for Diem, believing she had witnessed something they wanted to keep hidden. Toan knew he had to protect her. even if she didn't remember why she trusted him before. One rainy evening, as he was about to leave her room, Diem softly called his name, not Mr. Toan, but Toan, just like before. He froze. I don't know why, she said, her voice trembling. But when you're here, I feel safe. For Toan, it was enough. Memory or not, her heart was still speaking to him, and he silently vowed that this time, he would never let her go. In life, we often meet people who appear at the exact moment we need them most. They may not be perfect, nor do they always stay forever, but their presence can change the course of our destiny. The story of Tu Diem and CEO Toan teaches us that kindness, no matter how small, can create ripples that touch hearts beyond measure.
Tu Diem helped Toan when he was in danger, without asking for anything in return. In her eyes, helping someone in need was a natural act of humanity. Toan, though powerful and wealthy, learned that the truest strength lies not in money or influence, but in the courage to protect and care for another person. Their paths crossed again after hardship and separation, showing us that fate has its own way of bringing people back when the heart still holds a connection.
This story reminds us to value compassion over judgment, patience over haste, and love over pride. Life is unpredictable. We may lose our way, suffer losses, or even forget who we are for a while. But as long as we keep kindness alive in our hearts, we will always find our way back to ourselves and to those who matter most. True love is not about grand gestures or flawless moments. It is about standing by each other when everything else falls apart, and sometimes it is in the quiet, selfless acts that the deepest bonds are formed.